just kind of bring in some of the things that I've experienced with clients in terms of, why they did end up, because again, saturated market, lots of brand consultants, brand strategists, graphic designers who are now calling themselves brand strategists because somebody said add brand strategy and you can up your prices. We've got personal brand photographers calling themselves brand strategists, and no disrespect to you or anything like that, because and the thing is, this then actually is confusing
Yes.
business owners, or it's not even maybe confusing. It's just like, well, who do I work with, and or who don't I work with? And this actually saddened me a little bit. I had a experience with a client not so long ago, and she was in that sort of like, I'm just doing some inquiry calls and that kind of thing. And I'd taken her through how I would work with her and all of those kind of things. And she was, oh, I'm also speaking to somebody else. And I was like, okay, great. If you feel comfortable to share, what is it that they are offering you and stuff. And she told me that that other person was doing like sending over a questionnaire. And then in 2 hours, she was going to tell her everything about her brands. And that for me was just like, that's, you're not going to be able to really address and go into the real core identity and break down any kind of limiting beliefs and where they're coming from, why they're doing what they're doing. Mine's a 2-day process of, brand strategy workshop that covers the internal fundamentals and the external. So they then can be tied in together to create an overall brand narrative, not a bit of, you know, some information which you've not been able to then further probe on or challenge or reflect and those kind of things. And long story short, that other person was a lot cheaper. She did come back to me, I think it was about 2 weeks later or something, and she was just like, Aarti, I've decided to go ahead with you. You are much more expensive than, some of the other quotes I've already got, but I really like your thorough process. So I think also for business owners who are looking for, brand strategy work, and that's the other thing, right? Even the word brand strategy, put it this way, I've had no business owner ever come to me and say, Aarti, I need to work on my brand strategy, ever. What they have come to me has said is just like things like, my marketing's all over the place. My website is so disconnected to what I'm saying in networking rooms, and my content, I find it really hard to create social media content that feels me, or it's such a confusing messaging and positioning. Even I'm confused with my own business brand, and I don't know how to show up with my personal brand and business brand, and are they connected? They feel like they've outgrown it, or they're trying to grow a team and they're not attracting the right kind of people, or their audiences have changed. Everything around it, but the word brand strategy. And I'm like, well, actually, this is brand strategy work. So it's also that people only know what they know,
Yes.
in
Yeah.
in that sense. So for business owners to actually take that into consideration, what's the process?
Yeah.
What are they going to be getting out of it? So with myself, I have a brand narrative guide that they are then equipped with, so they can come to people like you and do the video photography or
Yes.
websites and visual identity and their content literally every single day. I've got a client who's just like, I come into my guide every single day as a bit of inspiration and to make sure I stay on brand in that sense as
Yeah,
well.
it's a really valuable thing, and from my point of view, I love working with there's some graphic designers that I know who will produce that sort of not in the same sense the brand strategy, but these are your brand guidelines, and they are so
Mm,
useful as a photographer, and I'm sure copywriters will say the same thing,
yeah.
uh, to make sure that everything is on brand and aligned. And yes, it's also what you were saying that I think this would be my point four to add on what we were talking about before, is to be very, very cautious of anybody offering too many services, unless you're
Mm,
going to an agency. Because there are people out there who will say that they will do your brand photos and your graphic design and your website. And my view is, having worked with very experienced graphic designers, having worked with very experienced and talented web designers, um, I wouldn't even begin to assume I could do their jobs.
Mm.
I could,
So,
I have my background's in engineering. I know how to set up a website myself. I know how to operate WordPress,
yeah.
but I would never offer that as a service that I would provide to a client, because the
Mm.
magic I bring is the photography, is chatting to somebody, and the videography is chatting to somebody, and as they're talking and telling me about their business, I'm visualizing what their shoot's going to look like, what images will tell that story. So I'm a very experiential person, a very visual person. So as I'm hearing words, I'm seeing it in my mind. Um, I wouldn't, I do have collaborations and I have people that I can recommend to bring in with the relevant expertise, but I would never offer that myself. I do provide help and support for people to use their
Yeah.
photos and videos in the right way. I can suggest the kind of post that they could write to go along with
Mm.
their visuals, but I'm not going to offer somebody, a whole marketing strategy. To be
Mm.
a
Yeah.
sounding board, I can help where I can, but I'm always very upfront with, this is my lane, and I am
Mm.
very happy to stick in that and be good at what I do, rather
Yeah.
than be maybe a little
Yeah.
mediocre or effective,
Yeah.
the whole thing together
And
and try.
that's what also helps with positioning you in people's mind as the photographer, videographer, in that sense, as opposed to, oh, she does this and this and this. What do I go to her for? Not quite sure, kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.